Have any of you guys ever heard of Charles Poliquin? Charles Poliquin. He actually died about a couple months ago, mid-50s, like big surprise. But he will go down in the books as one of the greatest strength coaches that has ever been. But before that took place, about 30 years ago, he had a problem. And his problem was a big question that he was asking. And what is the greatest training method in the world? Because he's starting to train athletes and try to figure this out for himself. So yeah, and of course on Facebook or wherever you go these days, everybody's got the best training method, right? Everybody's got the best burger in town to sell you as long as you've got the money to give them. But he really started digging into a couple different aspects, both like medical research, just like he was actually could read and speak like 5 different languages, so that helps to be able to do research with that. So he's researching at that level, but while at the same time he's gaining clinical hands-on experience with athletes. And so when it was all said and done, 30 years later, the answer to his question, what is the best training method in the world? His answer was, there is not one. And that answer allowed him to train, I think, 23 world champions in 14 different sports at the Olympics. The athletes that he trained set, I think, 13 different world records in their sports or respective activities. So he figured something out. In the last year or two, when Courtney and I started learning more about neurotype training, I think he was one of the voices that we were both exposed to a little bit, and I started to learn from him as well as the people that he was learning from. And so what Poliquin figured out that allowed him to have that level of crazy success with his athletes was that everybody has a unique neurotype profile based off of these little critters called neurotransmitters in our brain, right? And so, Leif, was it you said we need to hear about neurotransmitters here? You dropped that word, right? Yeah. So every time I say neurotransmitters, you have to put $1 in a jar for me because it's a lot of work. So we'll talk a little bit about what those are. I did like a brief little teaser blog for this a couple weeks ago. Did any of you guys read that blog post by any chance? Mm-hmm. Okay, cool. So a couple of you guys. So I think a helpful analogy to think about that with was, and this is actually getting very dangerous right now, not because it involves science, but because it involves art. So I'm going to be drawing some houses and stuff here. Well, this pink marker is not doing too well. But we've got... It is, yeah. Clearly, I think I'm typically like more of a Monet, Picasso type level, but marker's so bad. Thank you. So we've got a little village here occupied by some people, and imagine within our village that we have kind of some different tribes coexisting. We've got, we'll call them the greenies, and the blues, and then, say the pinks, and then we need one more here. We'll call them the purples, I guess. So, in each of these different tribes sort of has different things they bring to the table, different strengths. And when they're all balanced well, the village can kind of thrive optimally. But when things get out of balance, there can be certain issues that arise, right? Without going too deep into this analogy, we can start directly to just kind of talk about neurotransmitters and what they are and what they do. So your brain is made up of about 86 billion neurons, which are brain cells, right? When we're in utero, it's pretty crazy. Every minute, about 300,000 brain cells are getting added. So as they divide and conquer. So and these neurotransmitters here basically kind of relay signals from neuron to neuron, or brain cell to brain cell. Basically, your brain communicating with itself, right? And then, of course, if we were all studying BMDs, or to cut people's heads open and, you know, look around inside there and fix things, which, thank goodness, we will not be doing that today, unless there's a volunteer anywhere. You know, there's all sorts of fun that we could have with this, but there's about 100 different chemicals that kind of move around in your brain and send signals for your brain to do different things or perform different actions, right? And about half of these are neurotransmitters. So we're going to talk through all 50. No, I'm just kidding. What's great is that neuroscientists will say, well, there's really about a half a dozen that do 99% of the work. They're kind of the most popular, and going back to our village analogy here, they're kind of the most important tribes in the village, so to speak. And this is probably the most technical we'll get today. We'll talk about some of these key neurotransmitters. So we'll talk through that, and then this is where we're going to go. Talk about potential imbalances in the village, so to speak, and what you could see in your everyday life, and then how we can kind of achieve balance. And then we'll also connect that to training. And then any other questions you guys have that come up, we can do that too. Okay, so dopamine and acetylcholine. And then we have GABA, which is, you don't Google the spelling, uric acid. Not pretty close to that. And serotonin.
So you said these are the main guys.
These are kind of the main guys that are real important for sending signals in your brain and making different things happen. So, and these are kind of like our, very roughly speaking here, these are sort of on switches in our brain. They would call them excitatory neurotransmitters. These are sort of off switches, inhibitory transmitters that kind of help us to chill down. And you guys have probably, most of us here have probably heard of dopamine, right? Probably serotonin as well, and maybe know that it has something to do with sleep. So what do you guys know about dopamine, or what's the rumor on the block for this guy? Anybody?
Low dopamine, you have like depression.
Yeah, so low dopamine and low serotonin can cause forms of depression that look very different. Yeah, so that's true. What else have you heard? They can give you in the hospital. Yeah, L-Dopa, which is a drug that's often used to treat Parkinson's disease, which is caused in large part by low dopamine. So, interesting. Adderall does? I didn't know that. Yeah. All right, come on up here. You get to finish. Yes. So dopamine is, and again, if medical professionals were in here, they would probably shoot us for oversimplifying things. But again, we're trying to be practical here. This is, we're not looking to do brain surgery. So this is often known as like a pleasure or reward chemical. Okay. So the reason people get addicted to sugar is because of dopamine. The reason people get addicted to like cocaine is because of dopamine. So like the same part of your brain is stimulated. I think it's the ventral tegmental area. Receives a dopamine hit when you're popping that Oreo or snorting one. So yeah.
Also, it's a sugar.
It does. So eating the sugar gives you that hit of dopamine. Yeah, which that's a great question. Maybe you're asking, is it a cause or is it an effect? Dopamine, to complicate things a little bit here, is not just a neurotransmitter, it's also a neuromodulator. Okay? So that means it can do cause stuff and effect stuff. So this is sort of, here's something else dopamine is responsible for, and we're filling up the board so we won't write it, but dopamine controls drive and motivation. So when you get up in the morning and you want to go to work or you want to go be productive or take on that project or something, that is dopamine doing its work in your brain to go, get things done, right? Acetylcholine is also an on switch because it really allows for, and its main job here, we can just write this, is like focus and attention. And I've actually read that watching too many action movies or gory movies or things like that can deplete acetylcholine because you're using it all like enraptured and watching, Bruce Willis shoot people, and then and then your brain's saying, "Whoa, we're tired here. We've been focusing on edge too much." So roughly speaking, these are kind of some on switches here. How about these off switches? This is GABA. Is known for centered calmness. And that's kind of the deep breath. Like if we went and did a session at Get Hot Yoga, and we really breathe well and just kind of relax, there'd be lots of GABA happening in our brain. Serotonin is kind of the happy neurotransmitter. And it also, as we're talking here about the off switch, has a lot to do with the quality of our sleep. It's associated with big sweeping brain waves, the delta brain waves that allow us to reach a REM cycle, which is the deepest part of our sleep, right? So in order if we're depleted in serotonin, our sleep isn't going to be great.
When you say delta, what do you mean?
So when our brain communicates using electrical signals, right? It basically uses pumps of electrolytes to send ions from one neuron to another, to then charge up a neuron to fire out a signal to another part of the brain. And those signals, just like you would learn if you were taking electrician school or something, which I know nothing about, but like electricity moves in waves and waves and voltage and things like that. And so anytime, at any given point, if you know anything about what's the brain scan? Is it EEG?
EKG?
EKG. I think it is EEG.
Is it?
Yeah. EKG is the cardiogram, but yeah. In any case, what they're doing there is they're measuring brain activity and brain waves. And so think about it if we were sitting not in the Pacific Northwest here, but if we were sitting, in Southern California looking at a beach. And imagine throughout the day, different sizes and amplitudes of waves are rolling in, signaling different maybe times of the day. That's not dissimilar at all to what takes place in your brain throughout the day. Dopamine is like alpha waves in our brain. So kind of quick firing, like snappy waves, helping us be awake, be mentally charged and engaged in what we're doing. And there's times that we need to be there in our mindset, right? And then there's also times that we need to be here. And serotonin and GABA, but serotonin in particular helps us to do that. Okay, so that was a great question. I'm struggling a little bit to filter the information and know how much to disseminate here, but these are good questions. So let me hit a pause button real quick and just say, what questions do you guys have right now? What are you tuning on right now? So I can recover.
So does physical activity affect those?
Absolutely. Yeah. It's, so the one sentence summary for you here is that exercise has been proven to be as, if not more effective than antidepressants in studies. And that doesn't mean like if your doctor says take antidepressants, disobey them and obey me. You know, that's not what I'm saying. But like exercise, one of the most effective things you can do for brain balance, neurotransmitter balance, keeping your village happy, so to speak. But also we'll kind of get into some of the other areas that these impact, which is pretty crazy. And I think I'll tell you guys part of my story for that in a minute, how this connected to my everyday. But before we do that, anything else that you're wondering about with all of this?
So are you going to connect those parts of the brain to how our bodies react to the fitness? And
Yeah, we'll talk a little bit about that as well as how training can look different or should look different based off of what we learned here. So here was my experience. Like maybe, I don't know, 18 months ago, something like that, I kind of started to learn about this stuff. And I like to read the books, all of the books. I just kind of started researching and learning. And I learned that, and this is true for every single one of us, part of it is determined, so part of your neurotransmitter profile is genetic, and part of it is environmental. Okay. And so what I started to learn about myself through some signals that I was seeing that I'll talk about in a minute, and even through an assessment that I took from a guy who has put this together. You guys could do it too. It's called the Braverman Assessment. And so taking that and learning, and I realized that I was dopamine dominant. So I had plenty of this going on, and that I was serotonin depleted or deficient. My body wasn't producing as much serotonin as it should. Now, before I started to learn about this, I just thought I had a bunch of suboptimal, disconnected things going on with me. So, like for one, and I have to say this delicately, my digestive system has always been like muy rapido, but it was like the level beyond that was kind of like on the daily, if you know what I mean. So, like I was having digestive distress, basically, like digestive issues, which 95% of your body's serotonin is located in your gut, in your stomach, because there's what's called the brain-gut connection. There's not just neurotransmitters up here. Your nervous system isn't just up here. It's going on down here too. But before I knew all that, so I'm like, oh yeah, I've got these gut issues. Well, I guess I'm just kind of weird and always need to be close to the toilet or whatever. So I had that going on. I, as someone who really cares about my wife and my kids, and I want to be just like a kind and gentle husband and dad, I was falling so far short of that. I was very disappointed. And I still fall short of that. But like, as far as irritability for me would just be like, things that I'm like, why did it even set me off like that? Why is my aggression and frustration and anger so disproportionate to the trigger? I had a lot of this going on, and I was depleted here. My stress hormones were, firing in conjunction with this, again, because I didn't have much of this going on. So these were just some of the issues that I was seeing related to these imbalances in myself. There's more that I could kind of go into there as well, but these are some of the things that I started to see. So I got plenty of this going on, but I'm depleted here. However, and because each of us has a unique, kind of neurotransmitter profile, you could be flipped the opposite way. So when it comes to sleep, if you're depleted here and your body's producing an abundance of serotonin, it's possible that you always want to stay in bed, and then you can hardly get out of bed in the morning. And so if you're abundant here but depleted here, it's possible that you're addicted to something like coffee, and you can't function without coffee. Or for me, when I was here, I would wake up frequently throughout the night because again, I wasn't hitting deep sleep. I was hitting broken sleep. My brain was wanting. I would wake up a lot of times at 2, 3 a.m. and I'm like, oh, I gotta work. I gotta, write down this awesome idea that I have and take care of that because my brain was just on all the time and didn't know when it was time to be on. And so there's a lot more we could say about this, but one thing I want to kind of touch on here, and then we'll pause again for questions, is that the way that your body uses substances or stimulants can actually give you little clues about what's going on in your brain. So if you can't go to bed at night and you need a nightcap to help you get to sleep at night, I don't know, maybe you're here. And what's tough is that alcohol actually gives you a serotonin bump, while you're drinking, but then over time it's actually proven to deplete serotonin. So, and not only that, but alcohol, at least for me, and it's proven as you get older and older, destroys your sleep quality. So I experienced that if I even have more than a couple of drinks. I don't know about you guys, but so and substances and stimulants, the way that we use them and or our level of dependence on them can give us little clues into potential imbalances as well. There's so much more that we could say here, but again, we'll hit the pause and what thoughts or questions you guys have about that. You were going to say something?
Yeah, the serotonin being in your gut is huge. This is information I'm going to take home to Joe. And he cannot sleep at all. And I kind of, he's like you. He wakes up at 2 and he wants to go work.
Yeah.
So I might just do some research. Where do you think I can learn more about serotonin or anything that's dealing with the gut?
Yeah. So what I can do for you guys is, I'm trying to do this conversationally, but I actually have a book that I'm working, where this is, what we're doing today is basically a chapter in the book that's already written. And so I'll just send you all my notes, and you can see a more polished version of more polished, less relational than what we're doing right now. And yeah, I can send that to you.
That'd be great.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's where I was for sure. Yeah. What else?
So Sean, you were talking about these imbalances.
Yeah.
And you shared a little bit of your story with us, but you're dopamine positive, right?
Mm-hmm.
Potentially excessive.
Yeah.
And how do you know that that's not serotonin or?
How do I know it's not?
opposite of that?
How do I know it's not the opposite of that?
Yeah.
What would make you think, oh, it might be a serotonin?
Yeah.
Well, because these are accomplishing different things in the brain, and so all the cues I was getting from my body once I kind of was taking in this research, made all the clues led to one suspect and one suspect only, and that is, don't have enough of these guys, or I have too many of these guys running the show here, and I don't have enough of a voice, so to speak, from these guys in the village. Because none of these are good guys or bad guys. We just kind of need balance in order for the village, that is our brain, to function, right? We need to have an on switch, or on switches, and off switches for our brain to be healthy.
Hey, Sean.
Yeah.
Could they be directly correlated if you have excessive dopamine level, you're automatically going to have a deficiency in one of the other ones.
Yeah, it's
Same
not.
as the Thomas Frank says,
Yeah,
you know.
exactly. It's not.
Would
It's
you
not a given.
automatically go to excessive dopamine, or would you automatically go to depletion of something else, and then it leads you to the other sort of thing? Is there always going to be like, if you're high here, you're probably going to be low here? Sort of thing?
That's a great question. Yeah, it's not necessarily a given, but it is often the case. And so, like in this Braverman assessment, which I can send you guys a link to that as well, if you message me or something, or maybe I'll just send it out with the notes. But he kind of helps you see whether it's so looking at, speaking in deficiency terms, if it's mild or moderate, or you're not deficient at all, or a severe deficiency. He kind of helps rate it in that way. So, yeah. Let's talk about environmental factors a little bit and kind of what. So, sleep, nutrition, training. These are all, sleep, nutrition, and training are three key factors that kind of help regulate, or these are sort of areas that are in control, right? Genetics are what they are, right? You can't change that. But you can either optimize that or, settle into it. So, training, we'll go there. What Poliquin found is that each of these different athletes, so people who are dopamine dominant versus acetylcholine dominant versus serotonin dominant, these athletes needed to be trained in different ways and experience positive results with, like I said, no best training program. There's only a best training program for these different types. Okay? And so I said, well, let's give Poliquin a shot. It seems like he knows a thing or two, about a thing or two when it comes to training people. So I'll just try to train his way. And so because I was dopamine dominant, I took his suggestion of lifting heavy very frequently, almost all the time. So when we talk about lifting heavy, we're saying 3, or I would say even 2 to 5 reps for 6 to 10 sets, something like that. And when we talk about heavy, we're talking about 80+%. So that, using this training methodology in conjunction with, I was working with Courtney a little bit to actually make sure I was putting enough food in my body. And I had always said oh, I can never gain weight. I'm just a small guy, woe is me. And then I started training this way and making sure that I ate enough carbohydrates, which I was not doing, but which more than any other neurotype dopamine people have to do. You need more carbohydrates for dopamine dominant than any other neurotype. So I started doing that, and it was 5 months, and I gained 22 pounds of muscle. So, and now when I go to the doctor, my BMI, which we all know that's not very helpful, I'm actually overweight now. Because I've got, I got enough muscle that I'm overweight, so good for me there. So this is what dopamine dominant training looks like. And again, I've got in the chapter or in the notes I'll send you guys, we've got some more stuff here about what that looks like. So very little time under tension, because you're doing just a few reps, more sets, heavy weight. Okay. We'll kind of go through the training stuff and then again, see what you guys are chewing on, what questions you have. People who are acetylcholine dominant or GABA dominant, he actually he combines these into two and calls it an earth type, which I don't know. If you're Charles Poliquin, you just do whatever you want. So he has one type pure. Julie, were you gonna ask a
No,
question?
I took the test and I'm dominant in both of those.
Oh, nice. With the Braverman?
Yeah.
Oh, awesome. Okay. Yeah. So this is kind of this type of training here. This board's getting so messy, but I guess it means we're learning stuff, right? So here we need variance. Variance is the name of the game. So sometimes we're heavy, but then sometimes we deload. And very often, Poliquin would say, like, he wants to see how an athlete is moving or feeling on a different day because there could be some big fluctuations. But one of the things that I've started to see as I've learned more about this and then coach some of you guys in the gym is people who are complaining of tendon pain or people who are like, man, yeah, this is just like, my shoulder's really bugging me or my knee, I got this tendon that's flaring up. That is something that's very common with overtraining for these types right here. Okay? Then finally, serotonin. These are people who are just happy all the time, right? All they just want to do is sleep. So not really. But so for them, he recommends like more time under tension, or TUT. So bigger sets, 10 to 20 reps, or I think you might say 8 to 20. 8 to 20 reps, and then hitting fewer sets. There's some more volume, lighter weight, maybe 60 plus %. So let me hit the pause on this real quick. And you might be thinking, well, this is great. Like maybe I could learn what my neurotype is or whatever. But how is that going to help me when I come in and the workout of the day is always written on the board? Well, and this is what I've been trying to preach to you guys for a while. Like, you don't always have to do the workout exactly as it's written on the board. So, as you learn more about yourself as an athlete, you can adjust load. You can adjust reps, right? And we're not talking about even doing a different workout. Like that's not what I'm saying at all. Like, oh well, this is the workout for the day, but I'm feeling this, so I'm just going to go in the corner and do my thing. No, not only do we not do that here, but that's not what I'm saying. But what I do for myself, like quite frequently, even as a dopamine type, is I have like children in my house, like a child who has a sleep disorder. And so that means that I also have a sleep disorder, unfortunately. And so like I came in today and I was like all ready to crush this workout. It looked so fun, but I could tell that my body was not recovered from a workout the other day because I was up all night last night and I've been awake since 4 a.m. today and my sleep in the night was broken. And so I did the workout, but the people who did it with me are going to be like, that's why you finished first. So, like, I did, 8 power cleans instead of 10. Just kept chopped a couple reps, kept it light. I did burpees. And then, I did the row climbs as prescribed. And so, just adjusting things like that. So, as we learn more about ourselves and maybe where we're dominant, or potentially deficient, that helps us understand some of the signals our body is giving us related to training. And when we're ready to go and hit the gas, or maybe today needs to be a lighter day where I'm still going to come into the gym, but I'm just going to be smart and I'm not going to go 100%, So, yeah. Questions, comments on that? Does that seem realistic, or?
That's what's so awesome about this gym is not everything's by the book. Do it as the entire class is doing. Know your body and do what's best for you that day.
Yeah.
So Sean, if we're doing a lifting section,
Yeah.
And let's say the workout's written for like a 5x5. If you're falling under that, dopamine plus section, you would probably change the rep scheme and the load for that day.
Maybe, yeah. So if it were me and I knew myself and I came in as a member and it was 5x5, I might do like 5x5 and just really push the weight, just get as heavy as I can, and then I might, if I had time during class, like I might add in 6th set or 7th set, which a lot of times just that 1 or 2 extra sets, honestly, is the difference. Because typical strength, like the OGs of strength training, say you want to do 3x5 reps, 3x5 sets. But what Poliquin figured out and what I figured out for me is that rep scheme is good. I'm going to go heavy. I'm going to do 3 to 5 reps. I just need a few more sets than that to really see results. And this would be horrible if an acetylcholine, was doing this on the regular. Like they would be overtraining. Same with the serotonin. But for dopamine, if you're dopamine dominant, you take the Braverman or figure that out or whatever, you probably need an extra set or 2 to really get that stimulus to help you make the gains. Yeah,
But at what point do you, as our bodies adjust to these, sets, continually doing it, where does the adjustment come to accommodate, or I guess to break the cycle? Because I've always been told that, okay, well, you do this for 3 months, then your body gets used to it, and that's why it becomes so easy. Then you really don't get any gains.
Yeah, so I think I understand what you're saying. You can't just keep doing this in perpetuity, right? Yeah, so that's why even no matter what neurotype you are, you're going to need some deloads. So, weeks where you're working in the same rep range, but you're taking down the sets quite a bit. And then when you come in a lot and do a lot of your own strength during open gym and everything. So you can still come in and lift heavy, but it's just going to be a couple sets or something. Or you take the percentage work down to here, a lower percentage, hitting higher reps or the same rep scheme in here. So there's a lot of freedom and flexibility with that, but the idea is I'm just going to give my body a break for a week. Courtney, do you have anything to add on that or thoughts there? Yeah. Or any of what we're saying. You know a lot about this stuff too. No? Okay. Yeah.
Okay, so in your example that Leah picked, and you kind of touched on the under tension portion.
Time under tension.
Thank you.
Yeah.
What was that? Under the serotonin. So I was just kind of curious what that difference would be between those 3 different types, basically. I mean, you definitely hit on it for the high dopamine with the heavier set weight and reps, and then you touched on it with the time under tension that you would basically go a little bit lighter, but you would do definitely more reps. So what would that kind of look like in regards to the?
What would workout modifications look like for like a serotonin person?
Correct, and then also the earth one, whatever the GABA and the
GABA and acetylcholine.
Yeah.
Either or. So I don't care as much about those because I'm mainly interested.
You're obviously not as familiar.
That's true.
It doesn't hit home for you.
Yeah, I'll say Poliquin has some great. There's actually some really cool diagrams and stuff on the differences between each of these that I can send you guys to. I'm just gonna send you the whole internet just in an email. Yeah. So let's start for this one. With this one, the key is when you are warming up, and a lot of times like joint rotations and things like that, that's not a throwaway time, guys. Like that's a time to oh wow, my neck won't go this far. Like paying attention to how your body is feeling, which is super, super important for this, especially, right? We're like, oh, I went to do a push-up in the warm-up and like, oh crap, like I have tendon pain here. Like what is this going on? And so then during warm-up time, you're paying attention to how your body's feeling, looking at the warm-up, and then realize, you know what? I'm not going to be able to do RX warm-ups today. Like I think I need to like use the lighter one or whatever it might be. Or oh, we're doing squat cleans today. Yeah, today, like thinking about what I've eaten. I only slept 5 hours last night. Or again, these are the signals my body's giving me. Like I think it says work at 80. I think I'm just gonna like work at maybe like 65% today. Just kind of adjusting in that sort of way for this. And then serotonin, you can make similar adjustments as well as needed.
Quick question for you.
Yeah, but real quick. Does that kind of help?
Yeah, no, that.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Using more of a generic example, like tracking your macros. I mean, obviously that's a number that you can look at and assess. Are there metrics that you can use to track these neurotransmitters? Like, is something that occurs and I can say, well, okay, did this happen today? Yes. Okay, well, I can see there's an imbalance, and you can track it on a daily progression. Is that possible, or is it too dynamic to do that?
No. So there's a few things that you can do. The first thing I'd encourage you to do is if you're like really interested in this and you want to know more, is like maybe take that assessment. It'll probably take you a half hour to do that. I believe there's also, and I don't understand like how this would work, and I don't know how much it costs either. It's probably not cheap, but I think you can do some kind of like urine test or something that tells you
blood or urine. Or
Yeah, there's some type of urine test, and they probably. What is it? Okay, and I'm sure they take all of your money for that. Yeah. So. Yeah, right. That's right. Just take the free assessment on that. Yeah. But you can. What I can say.
I think so. Yeah, I think.
What I can say personally, Leif, is that I've seen changes in myself.
Yeah.
Like I don't wake up at 2 a.m. anymore and want to work. Like my sleep is so much better. And I'll talk about some of the environmental factors, and we'll be done in a few minutes here, but I'll talk about some of the really simple things that no matter what type of imbalance or whatever, like some really simple things that you can do to help cultivate neurotransmitter balance and health on a general level, just some things that will help you. And my sleep is better because I'm taking magnesium and gamma-butyric acid almost every night. So,
I guess that was my question.
Yeah.
We're talking about the neurotransmitter profiles and everything is a little bit different.
Yeah.
And there are obviously the genetic ones that you get, and you're not changing those.
Mhm.
But obviously you can change the environmental factors, like your
Right.
nutrition and your training.
Yeah.
So you said that you're high in dopamine and low in serotonin. So kind of in changing some of these things in regards to sleep, nutrition, and training, things that are controllable,
yes.
can you then therefore also shift where your levels are?
Exactly. Yep. And that's kind of the whole point. Like particularly, so then the main thing that we can address that we're looking to kind of course correct a little bit is deficiencies, right? So if our body isn't producing, say in my case it wasn't producing enough serotonin, how do I cultivate that? How do we, turn on the lights at the serotonin factory and make that happen? And we'll talk about. Julie, did you have a question?
Oh, it was kind of along that same lines.
Okay.
I was going to say, is the goal to have a balance between all of those four main neurotransmitters, or do you just embrace your dominant one and say, hey, that's how I am?
Yeah, that's a because part of this is, we don't think a lot about the life of our brain, right? We just think, oh, that's my personality, or that's, and a lot of who we are is the stuff that's going on in our brain every day. And some of that's healthy, and some of that's maybe things that we wish were a little bit different. And some of that we can change. So I can become a better, and this happened for me last year, I can become a more patient and loving husband and father, not just by working on that and being formed in, being formed in love and my particular religious tradition as a follower of Jesus, but I can control environmental factors that will help me maximize my ability to be that kind of person as well. And so we take all of these things into account. The building blocks for all neurotransmitters, we should have Legos here so that we can build with like different colors and everything. But what are these little guys made out of? They're made out of amino acids. They're made out of B vitamins. So here we've got some, when we look at like neuropeptides and neuromodulators and some of the neurotransmitters, some of them are made up of like 3 to 40 amino acids. And that would just be so difficult to talk about. But thankfully, the neurotransmitters that we were talking about, these are all categories called monoamines, what is the mono? One. Yay, so there's only one amino acid. That's a key building block for these really important neurotransmitters that we're talking about. And so for like dopamine, and if we really simplify everything down to dopamine and serotonin and achieving balance there, like everything else kind of has a way of settling in. Because again, these are kind of the major on and off switches. So dopamine is it's built with the little Lego blocks of tyrosine, which is an amino acid. It comes in like chicken. Is really high in tyrosine. Okay. And then serotonin is made with the amino acid tryptophan, which everybody knows about because you're laughing because well, everybody knows turkey has tryptophan, right? And there's plenty of other food sources, both meats and vegetables and fruits and things that have those amino acids, and that you can get them, from vegetable sources as well. So we've got these, and then what's the best way to get vitamins, guys? Yeah. So if you need to take like a daily vitamin or something like that, you're welcome to it, but the best way to get vitamins and minerals is like eating fruits and vegetables and things like that. So, and there's one thing I forgot here, is electrolytes, which we all know where that comes from, right? Gatorade, yeah. You got me, man. But these are like calcium. I think there's 9 or 11 of them, but we'll list out a couple here. Potassium, cholesterol, I think is one. So these different guys right here. So really simply talking, and we're almost with our hour. One of the most simple environmental factors that you can take into account, generally speaking, even if you have no idea what sort of neuro profile you have, is just eat real food. Eat things that have always been food. Eat more vegetables, and even in the last couple weeks, I've been eating more vegetables than usual, like 3 different kinds of vegetables with every meal, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And I'm like, I'm amazed how much better I feel. So, eating food that's always been food, hitting, because that's going to help you hit these electrolytes, which your neurons need to send these signals to each other, right? These B vitamins, things like folate, B6, can you pop a pill for that? Sure. Or just look up on good old Uncle Google, like, hey, what foods have B6? And I need those foods, right? And so then let's say you realized today, like, dopamine deficient, okay? So then what you can do is use, some of the notes I'll send you, or again, you can look it up on your own and figure out, so if one of the key building blocks for dopamine is tyrosine, and I think I'm deficient in dopamine, then I need to figure out how I can get more tyrosine in my diet so that my brain has what it needs to build more dopamine, right? And then in addition to that, if you feel like one of the things that could be a sign, like maybe you're kind of deficient in dopamine, and Catherine talked about depression related to dopamine. Like if you're low dopamine, you could have, you might experience kind of lack of vigor and enthusiasm for life, right? You could have low sex drive, low desire to go to work, low desire to get things done, kind of low motivation. Whereas like a depression for serotonin would look like just kind of sad. Eeyore. You just feel like Eeyore all the time. So these are some really just simple things we can do, and there's certainly more, but we almost reached our full hour. So what do you guys have to say about that, or what do you want to ask about as we kind of land the plane a little bit here?
So look at question. So if let's just pick dopamine. Say if I'm dopamine dominant,
Yeah.
and I start eating the monoamines that I need, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that switch.
Can your body produce more?
Well, can you have can a neurotransmitter become?
Okay, overtake the village.
Yes.
Yeah, have a little guerrilla warfare, and now the dopamines are in charge.
Right.
It's possible if you stopped, if your brain didn't have what it needed to produce serotonin, or if other environmental factors in your life, if you started drinking too much, or whatever the case might be. Yeah, exactly. Stress. So, I can tell this is kind of like connecting, and you guys are benefiting and stuff at the same time. But I feel bad because there's so much more that we could say, and I think you probably sense that, and you know that there's so much more beyond what I know and able to present. But there's just always more to learn, right? So, Matt, do you have a question?
Yeah, 2 questions. So, is there a hierarchy of importance with some things? Meaning, like, you think about our diet and how we have to try to hit a certain balance with our macros, but now based off of our potential dopamine levels, we're adding more different foods, so now it kind of shuffles everything around. Is this something where we say it's more important to get our neurotransmitter levels done and focus less on the macro balance of the diet, or I don't know if this is making any sense.
No, it makes complete sense. I would, and what makes this challenging is that everything in our life is connected to everything in our life. And so we're talking about how to adjust one environmental factor, and that is nutrition. There are a lot of other things that can be calibrated too. we could talk about if someone who's deficient here or dominant here, like you may want to add in some breathing exercises in your life, whether that's a meditation or prayer or whatever it is for you, something like that. So I would, unless you have like a significant, and we could talk about this, unless you have like a crazy deficiency in one of these, I probably wouldn't say like go buy a dump truck full of tyrosine and do that. But we can make simple adjustments of just focusing here. Yeah.
I would argue that eating a balanced diet of whole foods will balance your neurotransmitters. So if you can do both. Because you can focus on macros and you can focus on whole foods, and that will create an overall balance because you're getting. And so I kind of tell people like if they eat meat, eat a variety of different types of meat, not just chicken. Beef, bison, chicken, whatever. Because then you're getting a complete amino acid profile, and some types of meat have more amino acids than others. And so if you're eating a variety of foods and a balanced diet, you're going to hit everything and get what you need and feel the best overall. So kind of like he's adding at least to his diet, and he feels a whole lot better. He's getting more mineral vitamins, even though the nutrients in his body is like loving. So
Because, like I heard the other day, throughout human civilization, there are like 6,000 species and food items that humans eat. But here in our Western diet, it's like we mostly eat corn and soy and grain, and then like 2 or 3 fruits and vegetables. And so, but our body needs more than that. Like scientists estimate your body needs about like 100 different vitamins and minerals and kind of input things in order for you to kind of find balance here. And so the greater the diversity, the more helpful that's going to be. But here's the benefit, and this is an encouragement not just to Matt, but to all of you guys, is like up until like about I think 1927 is when people discovered neurotransmitters and kind of started talking about this. So like all the centuries and centuries before that, people didn't have any of this information, and they were still a lot healthier than we are. And you know why? It's because they just like ate real food, diverse. And so if we kind of follow suit, that's a really good start. And if you feel like if you take the Braverman or your interest is kind of peaked and you feel like, wow, things are way out of balance with me in this area, like, drop me an email or something where we can talk, and I'd be happy to kind of, because this is such an individualized thing, I'd be happy to have a conversation with you and maybe try to see what we could calibrate or adjust to try to